The one thing I kind of covered over the weekend and was paying a lot of attention to was the Trump executive orders.
Yeah,
Kind of
that was a pretty big one. Yeah.
looked at that and what's actually going on with those.
Yeah, so what's your general take on it? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit before, and how, I think your view on it was that basically this is just a bunch of Donald Trump talking, Donald Trump saying stuff, but then he turned around and did it, right? Then he actually did it. And I'll
Yeah,
be honest, my view was, I thought, and I actually still think, and I'm going to explain that in just a minute. I thought, and again, still think that this is kind of just negotiating strategy because the Republicans were at a stalemate with the Democrats in Congress. And so Donald Trump was trying to throw a wrench in it. And that meant that I didn't necessarily think that Donald Trump was going to go through with it. I was like, maybe he would, but like, I thought more likely he's just sort of threatening it. He's talking about it to try to, again, throw a wrench into the negotiations, try to move the Democrats a little bit further right so the Republicans don't have to compromise as much, because, of course, we know what's going on right now in the negotiations is that the Republicans, a lot of Republicans in Congress, aren't willing to vote for even the $1 trillion stimulus package, which they know they
right.
need Democrats to get. And Mitch McConnell now coming out and admitting, yeah, we're not going to be able to pass anything without votes from Democrats, right? So they, in other words, the Republicans know, all the Republicans in Congress know that they need to move the Democrats a little bit further right if they want to be able to pass anything at all. So Donald Trump was trying to throw a wrench into the negotiations by saying, well, I'm going to pass these executive orders. And I think that's what he did effectively, right? He creates this illusion, this little bubble that he's doing things when really he hasn't done a whole lot. I mean, the whole rent
Right.
evictions thing, it's not actually a pause on actual rent evictions. It's a basically directing, I think it's the Department of Health and Human Services to look into whether or not we
Right.
should pause rent eviction. Do we really need an investigation into that? Like, oh,
Right.
let me waste research. Come on. Like,
And that's kind of how all of those executive orders are. They have a nice title that's going to get a lot of attention and make people feel like Trump is making a difference in this country. But once you get past the title, those things are either not actually doing anything, like the evictions, or actually incredibly dangerous, like the payroll deduction, which is now going to
hmm,
contribute to further defunding Social Security and Medicare.
right.
So, it's fairly problematic. And you could be completely right about his motivations. I was definitely taken off guard when he actually passed these on, what was it, Saturday. I was surprised. And part of me thinks, you know, with his temperament, that it could just be that no one was taking him seriously. Everyone was calling his bluff that he wasn't going to pass these executive orders.
And
So
then he
he,
did.
his feelings were hurt. He just, fine, I'm gonna pass them anyways. I'll show everyone that I can pass executive orders, and then did it. But that's just, I could be completely off base
Yeah.
there, but that's just sort
Well,
of my reading. But
Okay. I'm going to slightly disagree with you and push back. And the reason for that is we also saw a lot of Republicans, at least Republican leadership, come out and basically defend something that they know is nonsense. Now, we did see Ben Sass criticize it. We saw Ted Cruz, I think, say something about it. We saw a couple of Republicans come out and,
right,
criticize it. However, Mitch McConnell basically was like, yeah, well, this is a good thing. And his talking points about it were basically saying how Democrats are not are like neglecting the American people, blah blah blah. The exact same stuff, by the way, that Chuck Schumer is throwing at Mitch McConnell.
right.
It's all just a talking point game at this point. But it seemed to me, at least, that the Republican leadership was on board with this. That this was possibly a strategy from Republican leadership to a last ditch effort to try to get. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, right? I'm
Yeah.
speculating. I'm openly admitting that I'm speculating. But it appeared to me, at least, it was a kind of last ditch effort from Republicans to try to pull the Democrats at least a little bit further right in the negotiation strategy, because again, they know that they're going to need some Democratic votes, and they also know that they can't lose their entire caucus on this thing.
Yeah, my guess would be that like at least the Senate Republicans, my guess is it was a little more reactionary. It's like Trump went and did his thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
the Republicans just had to
Yeah,
figure out,
maybe.
well,
Yeah.
how are we going to react to this? What are we going to do with it? And it does take some of the light off of them. So they're like, good, no one's looking at us right now. Everyone's talking about Trump's executive orders. So okay.
Right, right. I mean, it'll come back to bite him in November when it turns out that a lot of people vote down ballot. But yeah, that's definitely it's yeah. I mean, it could go either way. It's
Yeah. I
who
mean,
knows.
did you look into that payroll deduction, which first of all is not permanent? So that means that when you go to do your taxes next spring, you're going to have to pay that money back. right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless, and Trump came out and said, well, if you elect me, I'll make it permanent, right? So it's really
Right.
extortion here as far as like people spending money and how much they have. It's clear out extortion, and it's lose either
Well,
way. Because if he doesn't make it permanent, then we all have to pay it back in the spring when we do our taxes. Or if he does make it permanent, we've just lost half a year's funding for Social Security and Medicare, which is already on, by the mid to early 2030s is going to be having some serious problems. And now we're underfunding it by half a year again. It's essentially, I don't think people are exaggerating. Like we saw Rashida Tlaib and other people come out and say this would effectively end Social Security, like, or
right. I
have
mean,
that
it's
effect.
exactly. And the thing about it is, what's so scary about it is this is the kind of thing that you actually kind of need to dig into it a little bit to know
Mm-hmm.
that that's what's going on, because cutting Social Security, getting rid of Social Security is wildly unpopular. But then when you phrase it in this way, well, we're just trying to help people out because of this pandemic and the like, and maybe you just read the headlines of the executive order.
Right.
It's harder to get, like, this is truly dangerous. This is really
Yeah.
dangerous stuff. Now, the one thing I will say is that it's a gamble on Trump's side, right? Because it is forcing it creates a situation where Joe Biden might be forced to cut Social Security if he wins election, right? In terms of, like, if we're talking meta Republican strategy, Donald Trump probably not. Like, look, at this point, we're speculating. If I'm going to go this far, I'm saying that Donald Trump probably didn't do it because this requires, like, three-dimensional chess stuff. But, like, let's say that I mean, if you want to talk about, like, general, like, abstract Republican strategy, what could be going on is a situation where you're basically forcing Joe Biden's hand to cut Social Security because, I mean, otherwise he's going to have to be forced to make either the cuts permanent, or he's going to have to be able to win a fight in Congress to expand the benefits. I mean, could be difficult.
Yeah, I think it could definitely be it could be hard. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that if he gets elected, he's gonna walk into this absolute like mess that he's gotta figure out how to fix the mess. I mean, the truth is if the Democrats win, they're going to have so much fixing to do before they can do any kind of change that like progressives would hope they kind of make. Before that, they just have to like do triage on our government and fix the Department of Justice and put all the inspectors general back in place. And there's going to be so much cleanup. It's going to
Well,
be
that's the
ugly.
thing, though. That would take up all the air in the room. Joe Biden wouldn't be able to do
Right.
anything. Like
Right.
I imagine that he could manage to do it. Right, Social Security is a pretty popular thing, right? And it could even set the stage for expanding Social Security and protecting it in the long run. But it still sets up that situation where then all of that political capital is just, now all that political energy is being spent on Social Security, something that nobody actually opposes. Even Republicans know that, like, if they actually were to, like, seriously in one vote cut Social Security and, like, get rid of it, it wouldn't go over well for them. They can try to cut
Right.
it sort of by whittling it. That can work because people might not pay attention to that. But if you do it all at once, it'll be a disaster for Republicans.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that this could be part of a bigger game. Maybe it's not, but it could be. But that said, when we're talking about this tax cut thing, the one thing about it, we're saying, oh, well, Donald Trump can't actually cut your taxes. That's true, but he can tell the IRS, like he basically is doing now, to not collect. And if he can tell the IRS to not collect, I don't understand what would be so difficult with Donald Trump telling the IRS to only collect 20%. You know what I mean? Like moving forward or something like that. So, I mean, legally, right, there's problems, but it's not clear to me where the enforcement mechanism is outside of the executive. So if we're talking about enforcement, like a court might say, well, no, you can't do it, but it's still the executive, and Trump controls the executive. So I'm not exactly sure. Like, if Donald Trump were just to decide tomorrow, well, no, we're not going to be doing the tax stuff, we're going to cut that. The real obstacle, it would seem to me, would actually just be the employers, in terms of, are
Right.
the employers going to withhold it from the paycheck still and then keep it for themselves as, just in case, to, whatever reason, or are they going to send it over the workers? So I don't know. But that's kind of
Yeah,
something I was wondering
I think a
about.
lot of these employers are not going to play along because they could get stuck with a bill in the spring as well, right?
Right, there's
If
that
they don't
chance
collect
too.
these.
Yeah, and
So
that's something they wouldn't want, obviously. And by the way, actually, I will say, if the businesses are the ones stuck with the bill, then it probably would get taken care of. my guess is, because Congress will listen to businesses. They won't listen to workers, but they'll listen to
Right.
businesses.
Right.
So yeah, I mean the whole executive action stuff is just crazy. I mean, it's I'm not sure if it's surprising, but it was maybe a little bit shocking to even some, maybe, the more like the Ben Sass Republicans out there, right? The mainline libertarian Republicans of the early 2000s and the 1990s. Those are the kind of people who were probably truly shocked by something like this. I mean, this is the kind of thing that they spent their entire life criticizing. The idea of the executive taking all this power and trying to try to step past Congress. This is the kind of thing that they've always been critical of. And of course, now it's the thing that a Republican president is actively doing.
Yeah, and it just seems like each president from whatever party, when they get in there, they do a ton of these executive orders, and it seems like it's progressing, with each presidency, that this whole idea of executive orders is growing and growing. And then you kind of hit it on the head a few minutes ago, which is something that's been laid bare in this presidency, I think more than any other presidency, which is if you control the Department of Justice and you put your henchmen in there, then who's going to stop you from doing whatever you want to do, right? In a lot of these cases. So you can make executive orders and then say, yeah, we know this is unconstitutional, but how long is it going to take the courts to get around to telling me it's unconstitutional? And in the meantime, we'll sort of do what we want to do. And it's an ugly situation. I think we've had a lot of weaknesses in our system exposed. And that's part of what I mean, that, if Biden does get in there, he's going to be playing cleanup for quite a while.